Sisters and brothers, may the Lord give you peace on this, the second Sunday of Lent. Some time ago, I went to Barnes and Noble's, just a little time that I had for myself, and I was looking around for some ideas, I don't know. And so I picked up a book written by Scott Peck, and the title of the book was The Road Less Traveled. And I thought that was very, very exciting. I'll just take a look at that. And so I went through the introductory pages and I landed on the first sentence. Life is difficult. Well, that was enough for me. That was it. That book went back on the shelf. I didn't need to be reminded that life is difficult. I needed some some response that's going to help me overcome this difficulty. I don't need to be hit over the head with it. Life hits us where we least expect, but it's always we feel it on the inside. So I made a dash to Starbucks and then went home. So that moment haunted me for a while. It kept on rolling around in my fractured head because I was searching for a connection, especially with this Sunday's gospel. Voila, transfiguration. Better yet, transformation. Now I've got something to work with because through my experiences, life is not impossible. Life is not meaningless. We can still laugh and celebrate. We can still rest and play. Yet it's one thing after another, a demanding thing, one after another. And my mindset, we head for the remedy, we head for the recliner. So, what difficult seems to imply for me is that we need an intentional effort. When we engage with anything difficult, it's work, it takes energy. Human situations might fall apart unless they are built up. Effort and energy must be employed so that relationships might not become routine and predictable. Avoid being dissolved. And so, without this intentional effort, goals would remain unrealized. Enterprises would flounder. Even in paradise, with the first inhabitants of the garden that they had to attend. Yes, human life is difficult because life is unfinished. The tough part of what's difficult are the circumstances that we face when we meet up with trying to live a virtuous life, when we meet up with a moral kind of agenda. And as Franciscans, we bask in the sun of the Beatitudes, the sunshine of the spiritual and corporal works of mercy. We find our rule there. And so, committed to compassion, we face situations of suffering and we do not ignore them. We are committed to works of peace, but we find situations of division and hostility. And so we try to find a way without causing more conflict. We value honesty, yet we face all kinds of cover up. Walking the path of truth is certainly difficult. So life is difficult when we try to bring it to what is best in us. So we're talking about virtue. That's hard work. Determination and sheer willpower are not enough. God's grace is needed. And so we seek illumination, a cooperative effort with grace, that it may flow through us. And we find it, as Francis did, for that grace of illumination. Most high, glorious God, enlighten the darkness of my heart. And in the gospel of the Transfiguration, we find it necessary to ascend the mountain. The gospel tells us that the disciples do not understand Jesus' insistence on suffering, death, with the ultimate resurrection. Making the effort, I believe, would correct those kinds of expectations. On the mountain, Jesus reveals to them the divine source of this effort. And once they understand divine origins, do they rise without fear? And now they listen to him. They will learn to be open to God's will. They will be able to engage the difficulty of Jesus' way. Yes, Peter is correct. The mountain vision is good for them. Spiritual experiences are good. But what is the good of spiritual experiences? Are they not resources? Are they not encouragements for us to stay committed to the struggle? We realize that life is difficult. Adding to this is the difficult work of transformation. And so who better than to look to Francis, to make the effort to model how he has transformed his mind, and those experiences will trigger the movement, the transformation of ours. And so, at a turning point in his life, upon being released from his capture and imprisonment, Francis was drawn more deeply to solitary prayer. So must we. He began to lead a life of penance with a new vision of reality, seeing creation filled with beauty and goodness, reflecting the goodness and beauty of the Creator. So should we. The first step in metanoia was when Francis embraced the leper, when he overcomes revulsion, when he turns his heart to compassion and mercy, to live among the lepers in the marginalized communities outside the walls of Assisi. reorienting his life from personal enhancement to self-sacrifice and concern for others. So should we. He living the essential elements of gospel life. And now to be a little bit more personal, emphasizing Article 6 of the charism of the Third Order Regular, acknowledging God as the source of all that is good, adoring God with one's whole life, serving God in one's neighbor, the basis for charity and action on behalf of justice in the promotion of peace. That's our rule. He knew he could no longer identify himself with the wealthy and the powerful. Rather, he wanted to live among the poor and marginalized, the powerless and those without a voice, not holding or exercising power over anyone or anything. So must we. He embodies the gospel value of humility, because he's preaching by example, conforming himself to Christ, exchanging the richness of heaven for the poverty of the earth, so that we, becoming like Christ, could be rich with the treasures of the kingdom. So should we. And so, sisters and brothers like Francis, let us listen to these experiences. Let us listen to Jesus, a good that recommits us to the challenges of goodness, to experience higher truths for engaging the long haul difficulties of living. And so, as Franciscans, yes, we've been to the mountain and we've returned to the earth. And now, in these days of Lent, we are walking towards Jerusalem. And may God be with us always and in all ways.